I'm speaking today to the communicators in the conference, and I want to put the question to you if you are a communicator or a change maker. So as communicators, I feel that it goes into two different schools of thought. Some communicators can be quite inexperienced, quite junior, and very many organizations in Brussels are known for hiring interns and inexperienced juniors to do the communications. And then they're really seen as a tool. They're part of the machinery. You know, they do as they are told. The manager or the secretary general, for example, will tell them, this is what we're going to communicate, and you are going to push that message out. And we see in Brussels still a lot of really bad communications. And this is part of a broader issue about communications not being valued. And now I think that if we continue like that, our jobs as communicators will soon be a thing of the past. If we look now at logo design, translation, photography, there are a great many things where people believe they can get just as good a service from an app as from a real person. Well, I don't agree, of course, but that is the prevailing thinking these days. So either you're a communicator that is a tool in the machine and you're just doing as you're told, or you can be the type of communicator who's contributing to real change. And thankfully in Brussels, we do have some really good communicators, senior communicators who are involved in developing strategy and developing messaging, and they're really part of the senior management team. So what would it look like to be a change-making communicator? I believe that communicators can be change makers, and I believe that communicators should be change makers. And what that takes is credibility. My view on being a change maker is that it starts with credibility. And credibility builds trust. Credibility means that what we are saying, what our organization is saying and doing are believable. And this is how we build trust with our audience. So I've been working on credibility for many years. I started out as an environment journalist in Brussels 20 years ago. And I've always talked about this balance between credibility and visibility. So you can't have one without the other to do credible communications. If you have a lot of visibility and no credibility, that can really lead to hype, and that can backfire later on, especially when we're talking about sustainability or trying to make change in the world. If we have a lot of credibility but no visibility, that doesn't work either, because nobody will hear about the great work that you're doing. So after many years of working on this balance between credibility and visibility, I developed something new called credibility consulting. And credibility consulting is advisory and thought leadership for leaders, companies, and other organizations, also brands. And we advise on their strategy, their message development, their communications towards partners, and so much more. This is the type of work that you as a communicator can also be working on. It boils down at the end of the day to this one question: are you credible? And out of that work on credibility consulting came the credibility audit. And that is where we go in and we review the messaging and the public perception of an organization, and we identify the risks to the reputation. Now, I think I'm a change maker communicator, and I think that there are three elements to being a change maker communicator. Firstly, being a thought leader, being credible, and then building community. And I'll go into these a bit more. So I can tell you that I'm a thought leader. So here a few years ago, I did a TED talk at TEDx Ghent. I'm an ambassador for 1% for the Planet, and my firm, Sustainability Consult, has donated 1% of its sales since 2012, and that's benefited environmental nonprofits in Belgium. Or I won an award for being a conscious business leader. I can tell you I'm a thought leader. I can position myself as a thought leader. Just like for so many of us in communications, we're told by a client or by a boss or a leader that we need to position them as a thought leader. At the end of the day, me telling you that I'm a thought leader is not enough. You have to believe it, and that's the credibility piece. And at the end of the day, it comes down to this question: am I credible? And And to be a real thought leader, I also need to be open to being challenged. I need to be open to someone saying, I don't think you are credible, or calling me out on something that I've been doing. And this is really the key question. If you're working in communications and you want, I hope that your communications will be credible, these are some of the things that you can focus on. First of all, having what we call a killer Q&A, and that's where we test the messaging of an organization for credibility. I've been in journalism, I've been asking tough questions my whole career. So we ask those difficult questions that you might get from various stakeholder groups. We test the messaging, we do media training, and we work on that balance between credibility and visibility. And my third point was community. Now, I don't believe that everybody has to start and run their own community. But since the beginning of Sustainability Consult, we've been building community in Brussels. And then during the first lockdown, I saw that it's always been hard to find work and meaningful work in Brussels, but I saw that people were really struggling during the first lockdown. And so we put together a workshop on Find Your Green Job in Brussels to give extra support to the community. So I'm saying, I don't think you need to start your own community necessarily, but for just finding ways to contribute, finding ways to be of service and to lift other people up and empower others, I believe is really part of being a changemaker communicator. And for anyone in Brussels, you're very welcome to join us in the Green Drinks Brussels community. So I do see myself as a change maker, but I'm a change maker who just happens to be a communicator. To me, it's not all about communications first. It's always been about sustainability. It's always been about trying to make a difference in the world. So I just happen to be a communicator. Because to me, communications is just a tool. And the most important thing is the message and the intention and the credibility of that message. Well, I'm also certified as a coach this year because I wanted additional ways to help leaders and change makers move forward. I wanted to find additional tools to help people find their way to a meaningful life and career, because everybody's path is different. And I'd like to just share a few resources on greenwashing, because this is really key to the discussion around credibility and around sustainability. So Client Earth has put out some good resources recently. You'll find that on their website. And they've also made a quiz to see if you can recognize greenwashing. And in the days of fake news and many claims about environmental things and everything being so green and so great for sustainability, this is really important that we hone these instincts and skills to recognize greenwashing. And then I saw this article recently in The Guardian saying that in the UK, the competition watchdog was going to start vetting, was going to start investigating environmental claims. And so this is all positive. So where do we go from here? Well, I guess it's an invitation that I'm making to you if you're a communicator. You have this opportunity to make change. You can either be the communicator that's put in the corner and does as they're told and just pushes out messaging from their organization that they might not even believe in. Or we can step up, speak up, engage, and become a change maker. And it saddens me to see people having the opportunity to make change and wasting it. And so I really hope that my takeaway from this talk will be that if you have this opportunity for change, don't waste it. If you're trying to face up to these questions around credibility and you're not quite sure where to start, then the credibility audit can be helpful, as well as the credibility consulting. And I just want to leave you with this. When our communications are credible, we build trust with our audience. And a credibility checklist. Feel free to take a screenshot of this if it helps you. When you're communicating a message or you're running a campaign, these are questions that you can ask yourself. Is this true? Can I prove it? Is it consistent? And whose interest does it serve? So I'd like to invite everyone to stay in touch if this is something that they're interested in. There are a few links here on how you can follow me and Sustainability Consult on, all the usual platforms. And that's it from me, if you have some questions.
Yeah, if you have some questions, do let us know. Kathryn, thank you so much for that. I wanted to ask you, if someone here tuning in this morning is working in comms and is expected to do things that they actually don't think is credible, what would your message be to them?
Oh, it's so difficult, isn't it? I mean, these days, obviously, we're in a really insecure time around jobs. So I can understand if people feel stuck having to do something that they're not comfortable with. At the same time, you don't have to be stuck. So even if you are not able to change and find your way into a more meaningful role, there's always space to challenge. It doesn't have to be an aggressive challenge. It doesn't have to be, an impolite challenge, but there's always room to just talk to the people that are giving you the messaging. They might not have that same credibility radar that you have. They might not have tried to develop their own understanding around greenwashing and around credibility. So I would always encourage people to just have the conversations and invite discussion around things. I think when we are not coming from a place of integrity and coming from a place of credibility, we feel that, things feel off. And you might be able to push that under for a while. You might be able to tolerate that for a while, but at the end, it comes back to bite us. So it's really in our interest to speak up if we feel that things are not right. And that's not just in communications. I really believe that that's right across everything we do in our lives. If we see something that is off, we speak up.
And what more have you got out of your work since you became a so-called change maker?
That's a really great question. I think I've always seen myself as wanting to make change. I think that my principle for work has always been to do good and make a difference. And that might sound a bit airy-fairy, but I also recognize that there were so many different ways that I could do that. The way that I do that for the last 12 years since I set up Sustainability Consult is through communicating on more sustainable technologies, more sustainable projects, and so on. So I feel very much that my values are aligned with the work that I'm doing, and I'm very happy to be able to contribute to the community, also the environmental community in Brussels and other communities that I'm involved with, and just helping to move things forward and encouraging people, and maybe giving people the courage sometimes to stand up and say if they're not comfortable with something.
We've questions coming in for you there. Kathryn, Sheridan, I've one there from Nuno Espirito Santo. Dear Ms. Sheridan, what realm do you think suffers from the biggest lack of credibility? Thank you so much for your answer and for your presentation.
Which area has the biggest lack of credibility? So I tend not to mention individual companies or individual sectors, just because it's quite hard to speak for an entire sector. But we do see in Brussels even that there's still a lot of greenwashing going on. I mean, the reason I set up Sustainability Consult already 12 years ago was because of the greenwashing that I was seeing. Everyone communicating on sustainability or on environmental issues with birds and butterflies and babies, and in a way that really wasn't credible. And so it was my goal to eliminate that. Well, of course, single-handedly, I didn't manage to eliminate all greenwashing. So it's difficult to mention one sector over the other, but I do see that there's a lot of big industry which is trying to appear like they're doing the right thing. And then I would really speak to the people working in those companies, because they know that something is off. They know that there's a sustainability policy or a sustainability report, but maybe the company in the everyday choices is not living by those values that they say they have. I hope that answers the question.
I think it does. Yeah, I'll just bring in one more comment, not a question, just a comment, and then we're going to move on to Guillaume from Martin Monco saying, don't you think that many people out there are tired with changes? They don't look for change makers, but rather stability makers. Just a comment there from Martin.